Hi everyone, I'm Katrina and today I'm going to be talking about all of the books that I read and reviewed in the month of August. Yes, you heard me right. I said review. I posted a review this month. Who am I? It's been a little while since I've posted some reviews, but this one in particular was a long time coming, and that was my review for Nevernight by J. Kristoff. Nevernight is one of my favourite books, and I'm also really happy with how this review turned out. I've been planning on doing a review for over a year, so I've been thinking about it a lot, and if you need some persuasion to go pick up Nevernight, then definitely take a look at my review. In August, I participated in 2 readathons. We have the Tome Topple readathon round 4, which was towards the beginning of August, and we also had the first 2.5 weeks of the Reading Quest challenge. It's also continuing into September, or it might have finished by the time I post this video. Who knows when it's going up. If you wanted to see my reading vlogs for both of those readathons, I will have them all linked down below. I did one for the Tome Topple readathon and then weekly vlogs for the Reading Quest. Because of these 2 readathons, I managed to read a total of 10 books in August, which I'm very happy about. But without further ado, let's jump into my thoughts on all of the books I read in August. Carry On by Rainbow Rowell is Rainbow Rowell's take on the Simon Snow story that we're introduced to as fan fiction within Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell. So rather than being the original story that exists in Fangirl or being Kath's fanfiction, this is Rainbow Rowell's take on the Simon Snow story. I hope that makes some sense. Simon Snow is the chosen one in this magical world. He goes to a wizarding school and his roommate is a guy named Baz, who is pretty much his enemy. I ended up giving Carry On 3 out of 5 stars. I really found it a lot of fun. I did enjoy it, but I think the main reason why I wasn't able to kind of connect to the story itself and the characters as deeply as I would have liked to was because, now, I went into this knowing that there were a lot of similarities between this and Harry Potter. I knew that and I'm totally fine with that. I don't have any problem with it. But a lot of people have mentioned how at the beginning they were kind of drawing all these parallels between Carry On and Harry Potter, but after a while they just kind of naturally stopped drawing those similarities between the two and were able to really enjoy Carry On as its own story. My brain didn't allow me to do that. Even on the final page, I was reading the word Simon and thinking in my head, Simon equals Harry, or Baz equals Draco. My brain just refused to switch off drawing comparisons between the two, which like I said, I don't have a problem with it being really similar to Harry Potter because I love Harry Potter, but it just stopped me from connecting to these characters as they are themselves rather than drawing a comparison to a different character from a different series. So I don't think it's entirely the book's fault. I think it is my brain just being really stubborn. Maybe it's also part of the timing and circumstances in which I read this book. But like I said, I did enjoy the book and I thought it was a lot of fun. And in particular, I really enjoyed the take on the chosen one trope that we see in this. I really like what it did with that idea. I also listened to the audiobook for The Watchmaker of Filigree Street by Natasha Pulley. This is set in the 1880s. The main character, Thaniel, comes home to his apartment to find that someone has broken in and left him a watch, which is quite mysterious. He has no idea who or why. And then 6 months later, it's because of this watch that he's actually saved from pretty much getting blown up by a bomb. And this really prompts him to track down whoever it was that gave him this watch. And in doing so, he meets the watchmaker, a man named Mori, who is a Japanese immigrant. So this book is obviously quite historical. We have some political intrigue, as well as some magical elements as well. The audiobook itself wasn't bad or anything, I just think I struggled to connect with the narrator a little bit. So because of the narration, there were times where I was zoning out and I'd have to re-listen to things. And one thing in particular that it made me miss was the male-male romance that develops in this. And I do think for some of it, it is quite subtle and something that you need to kind of read between the lines of, particularly considering the context. But listening to the audiobook really made it hard for me to actually pick up on those things. So when it was kind of more explicitly talked about, I was a little bit shocked, and I don't think I was supposed to be quite as shocked as I was. But I do think that I had the potential to really enjoy this book. I think just listening to an audiobook wasn't the right thing for me, so I do actually plan on rereading this at some point in the future, but reading the physical copy. The Song Rising by Samantha Shannon is the 3rd book in the Bone Season series, and this is a really difficult series to describe. I was actually able to meet Samantha Shannon in August as well. I went to one of her panels that she did at the Melbourne Writers Festival, and I was also able to do a Q&A with her at a bloggers event that I hosted through Bloomsbury. I did actually actually live stream the Q&A session with Samantha on the Bloomsbury Australia Facebook page. I'll have that link down below if you're interested. We did have some technical difficulties, so the orientation is sideways, which is a little bit of a shame, but if you're interested in watching it, then I'll have that linked down below. But as Samantha mentioned, she describes this as kind of like an epic dystopian fantasy. So the main character Paige is part of this underworld in Sion, London, because she is a clairvoyant, and clairvoyants are pretty much hunted down and taken away. I'm not going to say anything more than that because it's, like I said, a difficult book to describe. But in the song Rising, we actually get to explore a little more and travel outside of London and Oxford and see how the corruption has extended outside of those areas that we see in the first two books. I gave the song Rising 4 out of 5 stars. I'm really enjoying this series. I just find it quite easy to read. The world building is complex at times, but I find it so fascinating. But it definitely helps that there is a glossary at the back, and it does have maps and some other really helpful information towards the front, because there is a lot of information that you do take in, but I'm really enjoying learning more about the world and clairvoyancy. I really enjoyed getting to explore some more of Britain in Song Rising, and the action, especially towards the last half of the book, just things get so much more intense, the stakes just get higher and higher, and I'm just thinking to myself, how are these people going to make it out alive? Will they make it out alive? It's just getting quite intense, quite dangerous for them, and I'm really enjoying it. The Song Rising doesn't have a cliffhanger quite like the Mime Order does, so while the ending does finish off more comfortably than the Mime Order, we're at this point where I'm just so excited to see what happens in book 4 and all of the other places that we'll get to see. So yes, definitely looking forward to continuing on with the series. Volumes 16 through 18 of Full Metal Alchemist by Hiromu Arakawa. This is a manga series where we follow the Elbrick brothers. This one here is the Full Metal Alchemist. He has a metallic arm, a metallic leg, and we also have Alphonse that you can kind of see there, who is pretty much a walking suit of armor. You've probably heard me talk about this series so much and how much I'm enjoying it. I don't have too much to say about these volumes. They weren't my favorite volumes in the series, but as the story is progressing, I don't know, just things are getting quite intense, and I'm really fascinated to see how things do finish. Similar to the Song Rising, the stakes just get higher and higher, and I'm just like, how is all of this going to go down? So I can't wait to finish reading them, and then I'll watch one or both of the anime series too. I listened to the audiobook of The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue by Mackenzie Lee. This is a historical book that has a little bit of fantastical elements in there. It's just kind of sprinkled in there a little bit. But we follow our main character, Monty, as he embarks on his tour through Europe with his best friend, Percy. Originally, it's supposed to be this kind of last hurrah before he manages his father's estate. Monty likes to drink and gamble, and he has lots of relations with both men and women. Things don't go quite according to plan because his sister ends up tagging along, and he is chaperoned by one of his father's friends or colleagues or associates. Can't entirely remember how they know each other, but he's forced to have a chaperone on his tour, and it starts out obviously not being quite as fun as Monty had hoped, but then Monty inevitably finds himself in more trouble, and all the while as well, he is in love with Percy. So this was just so much fun. It was such a fun read. I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars. I went into it not knowing pretty much anything apart from the fact that Monty was bisexual, or there would at least be something going on between Monty and Percy, or some feelings one-sided or not. So I didn't know anything in regards to the plot, and I don't know, it just wasn't at all what I would have imagined to have happened, but I just had so much fun riding along with the characters. In this book as well, we obviously have some bisexual representation, disabled rep, but also potentially an asexual character that I think will be explored in the next book, I think. Not 100% sure, but just a bit more info for you guys. But it was just such an enjoyable read, especially listening to the audiobook, because the narrator did a really good job just getting so much of Monty's personality out there. He does have quite a strong personality. He's kind of a snarky guy, he's very confident, and like I said, he likes to gamble and drink and just get up to all kinds of mischief, and we definitely see him getting into a lot of mischief and trouble in this book, so it was just an enjoyable ride. Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll, and this is the version illustrated by Camille Rose Garcia. As you can see, is quite a dark and eerie kind of illustration style, which I think works with Alice in Wonderland because it is kind of whimsical and dark around the edges. I also gave this 4.5 out of 5 stars. I don't read a lot of classics, usually because I find them kind of dull and just hard to understand sometimes, and I think I've only read a couple of children's classics, but this just blew me away. I really enjoyed reading Alice in Wonderland. Going into it, I had just kind of like the Disney story playing in the back of my head, but I had such a fun time reading the original story, seeing some of those parallels, but also some of the things that were missed or slightly altered in the Disney version. And it was also fun having the illustrations as well. Alice as a character, I wouldn't say she's the most likable character. She could be quite irritating at times and making some not so sensible decisions, but I think that her personality, paired with, of course, the narration as well, just really worked with the nonsense of Wonderland. So yeah, I really enjoyed this. The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater. This is another one that I listened to on audiobook, and I did quite like the narration. I thought the narrator did a pretty good job kind of differentiating between the characters, using different voices and accents, but I did have to speed it up more than usual just because I think the narrator was a little bit more slow. But the story of the Raven Boys. We have Blue Sergeant, who lives among a bunch of clairvoyants, but she herself does not have the ability to see the dead. And for as long as she can remember, she has been told that if she kisses her true love, he will die. So in the Raven Boys, she meets the Raven Boys, some of the students from the Aglonby College, the all-boys college, and she's always told herself that she will never interact or engage with any of those boys, but she does. I gave the Raven Boys 4.5 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed it, though I expected that I would after hearing a lot of the reviews for the book. This isn't a very fast-paced book. It is quite leisurely towards the beginning of the book especially, but I just really enjoyed going along for the ride as Blue meets the Raven Boys, as they kind of go exploring in search of these ley lines, which are these lines of energy. And I'm not sure if it's because I was listening to the audiobook and similar to the Watchmaker that I didn't pick up on some of the things between the lines, but there were some things in here that I didn't expect to happen that kind of took me by surprise. And if you take a look at my reading vlog for the Reading Quest week 3, I included a clip of myself live reacting to the Raven Boys. You can't hear the audiobook, it's sped up like 8 times speed, so you have no way of knowing what's being said, but it just really took me by surprise. So if you're interested in seeing a live reaction of one of the things that is revealed, then take a look at that. But I'm really looking forward to continuing on with the books in this series as well. I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to continue listening to the audiobooks or if I'll read them as physical books. I have a feeling if I listen to them, I'll probably get to them sooner, so I guess we'll see. And now for the last 3 books that I'm going to be talking about today. These are my 5-star reads, the best books that I read this month. Accordionist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. This is the sequel to A Court of Thorns and Roses, which is kind of a very loose kind of reimagining of Beauty and the Beast. We have Feyre, who kills a wolf, and that wolf actually turned out to be a fairy. Because of this, she is dragged above the wall into the land of the Fae. And I did enjoy A Court of Thorns and Roses, but this took it up a few notches, a lot of notches. I really enjoyed this book. Like I said, 5-star read. It was so much fun. I really enjoyed getting to see some more character development from Feyre, as well as exploring some more of the world. In the first book, we're restricted to Feyre's home below the wall, as well as just the Spring Court in Prythian, but we also get to see some of the Night Court in this one, which I loved. And I also loved getting to know Rhys a little bit more, and also getting introduced to the Inner Circle. They were awesome. I loved getting to know them and just seeing their interactions, the dynamic between all of them. I just had so much fun with all of the characters in A Court of Mist and Fury, and Rhys. So before I started A Court of Thorns and Roses, my friend was like, okay, you can read the book, I recommend it, but Rhys is mine. And I was like, yeah, sure, whatevs, man, he's all yours. And I read A Court of Thorns and Roses, and I was like, okay, I like him, but I'll respect that. And then this, I was like, okay then, nope, you can't have him. Meet me up back in 10, okay? Delicious. And the last 2 books that I read this month were rereads, and they are The Name of the Wind and The Wise Man's Fear by Patrick Rothfuss. One of my favourite series of all time. Love these books, so I decided to reread them. I always kind of told myself that I would probably wait until we heard more news about when the 3rd book would be published, but I just couldn't wait. I wanted to dive back into the world, so I did. The Kingkiller Chronicles pretty much follow the life of a man named Kvothe, who is a very well-known man across the land, and when we first meet him, he is an anonymous innkeeper, but he ends up telling his story from his childhood when he was a trooper in the Ademaru, as he becomes a student at the university, learning magic, which I love the magic system in here. We have things like alchemy and sigildry and sympathy. Very fascinating to learn about, and some of the other adventures that he goes on as well. We don't yet know the events that led him to adopt this life as an innkeeper, but we will hopefully find out in the 3rd book when that comes out. But it's just a fantastic fantasy series. I adore the writing style. The world building as well is absolutely incredible. One thing about The Wise Man's Fear in particular, I was really enjoying the humor. I listened to these on audiobook and I was laughing out loud so many times. The banter between the characters and the friendships that we see develop in this book in particular, it just made my heart sing. I loved seeing them, especially with Will, Sim and Fela, also Ari as well. These books are stunning. I would highly recommend them, and these are high fantasy, but I do think these are quite accessible high fantasy, so if it's not something that you typically read, I think it might be worth giving a try and see if you enjoy them. I have done a review of The Name of the Wind many moons ago, and I have not yet done a review of The Wise Men's Fear. I do plan on doing one at some point in the future. Not sure how soon that will be, if I might read them again and then do the review. Who knows? We shall see. But those are my thoughts on the books that I read during August. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, I would love to hear what you thought about any of the books that I mentioned in this video down in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching. I will see you very soon in another video, but until then, I will talk to you in the comments. Bye!